it's my very great honor to introduce our keynote speaker. This is Miss Brianna Daniels. I just met her this morning, and it's been a pleasure to meet her. Brianna Daniels is the CEO of Bridger Bionics and the Community Engagement Manager of Trialware. In addition to her experience as an entrepreneur, she is also a two-time childhood cancer survivor and amputee. Brianna is committed to community building and breaking down barriers to create a more inclusive and accessible world. Neat thing about Brianna, she has the story that many Montanans have. She came to Montana to attend Montana State University and fell in love with Montana. How many have heard that story or lived that story? Montana is called the treasure state for a reason, because we have a lot of treasures in this state, not the least of which is the amazing lifestyle we have here. So please give a big hand for Brianna Daniels, our keynote speaker.
Thank you. All righty. This is my first speaker event, so bear with me, guys. Thank you. All right. What was the first thing you did when you turned 18 years old and became a legal adult? Did you buy cigarettes? Did you get a tattoo? Did you get a scratch off from the gas station? Well, the first legal documents I signed as an adult were my amputation papers. It's fair to say that I did not start adulthood off on the right foot. I started on my left. So what do you do when the thing that defined you, your fundamental sense of self, is suddenly gone? This moment was devastating, but it did not end my story. It began a new one. One that led me to the top of mountains, into startups, and here with you all today. My name is Bri Daniels, and I am a two-time childhood cancer survivor, an amputee, a builder, and a founder. And I've had this incredible journey I never could have seen coming. The hardest moments in my life gave me my clearest purpose. Joy, mobility, and community grew out of circumstances that you would expect would crush all of those things. This is not a story about surviving cancer. This is a story about discovering a new path, a new way forward, developing a mindset and the ability to use hardships to inform action. It's about remaining flexible and open to whatever life brings. Because that's the thing about startups, small businesses, and life. The original plan rarely survives reality. Mike Tyson put it well. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. We cannot control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. That's a pretty valuable way to approach startups. And that's what this conference is all about. The first time I was diagnosed with cancer, I was 11 years old. I was an extremely active kid. I lived for movement. I loved to play soccer. I was pretty convinced I was going to play professionally. And then one day, I noticed a small bump on my ankle. My primary care doctor said that it was just a ganglion cyst. We all get cysts, right? Pretty common. But the pain got worse. Eventually, we saw a specialist. I had a biopsy, and it wasn't nothing. I'll never forget the moment that I heard the word cancer for the first time. It was over the phone. The next day, I was whisked into an extensive 17-hour surgery to reconstruct my leg. They used different parts of my body to kind of Frankenstein me back together. I thought a bad day was losing a soccer game, and suddenly, I was losing everything, and I wasn't even in 6th grade yet. For me, normal disappeared overnight. It took over a year of treatments, of being the cancer kid, of missing school and sleepovers and everything I had taken for granted. And I fought hard. I thought I beat it. I thought I'd earned my way back into the life that I had before cancer. From middle school and into high school, I tiptoed back. Doctors had told me that I probably would never be able to run again. It was too dangerous with my reconstructive surgery. But I'm stubborn, so I joined cross country and track, and I was good. I was not just a participant, I was varsity good. I felt like I had reclaimed my identity as an athlete and who I once was, that I got back on the path that I had expected for myself. Then came senior year of high school, and as everyone around me was planning for college and making plans after high school, life made plans for me. The day before my 18th birthday, I was diagnosed with cancer again. This time, bone cancer, caused by the radiation treatment that had saved my life years before. The cure had become the cause. I remember the moment doctors told me that they had to take my leg. I looked down, trying to process that I would never see my leg again. Turns out they don't let you keep it, I asked. It wasn't just the loss of a limb, it was the loss of a normal future that I thought was mine. A future where I looked normal. I couldn't recognize myself anymore or what my future might look like. I didn't know how to move in this new body. I didn't see myself in anyone around me. I didn't know anyone personally with a disability, and I did not know where to begin. And then one day, while I was riding the elevator at Mayo Clinic, I was bald, legless, rashy, not having a good time, on crutches. I met Nicole. She looked at me and she said, "You are going to be able to do everything you did before and more." At first, I was confused. Why was this random lady talking to me when I was clearly not having a good time? She then revealed that she had a below-the-knee prosthetic. Turns out, she had been saved by the exact same care team that was working to save my life over a decade before. She was a sarcoma survivor, now living her life fully, and changing policy and advocating for folks like myself. We exchanged information and we stay in touch to this day. And that moment changed everything. Meeting someone who is cancer-free and living their life fully meant I could start too. Due to healing complications, I was unable to get my first prosthetic for over a year after my amputation. I was in limbo without my limb. I did not want to wait to start living my life again. So I packed up my things and I went on a cross-country road trip from Wisconsin to California on crutches. I stopped at as many national parks along the way as I could, including Yellowstone, Tetons, and Arches, just to name a few. I even went on some hikes, and I remember when I reached the top of one, this old man looked at me and was like, "You got up here on those?" I was like, "Yeah, what else would I have used?" Like it was a big deal. This trip taught me something powerful. You do not need everything to be ready to begin. You don't need all the crucial pieces, like even a leg, to get started. You can figure it out as you go. I really believed I needed to be fully recovered and back to normal, that doesn't exist by the way, to start living my life again. But I'm so glad I challenged that belief and began anyway. When I got back from my trip, my leg was finally healed enough to begin the process of being fit for my first prosthetic. The start to my recovery was really hard. I'd use the cliche that I put one foot in front of the other, but you get it. My first prosthetic did not fit right. It was really uncomfortable, and I was deeply disappointed. It was bulky, it was stiff, it did not let me move in the way that I had imagined myself being able to live. Prosthetics have come a long way, but there's definitely a lot of different kinds, and I've learned that over the years. Fortunate for me, it got a lot better over time. But at the time, the medical system's point of view was at odds with my whole approach to life. The doctors talked about limitations, not possibilities. The idea was survival, not thriving. I remember having a really hard conversation with my oncologist about some side effects that I was experiencing, and her response was, "We knew that this would be the cost," and that was it. Medicine has obviously brought us so many incredible advances. I am here because of it, but I have a complicated relationship with it. Treatment for my first type of cancer ultimately caused my second and my amputation, and the protocol hadn't changed in over 40 years. So yeah, I had a lot of questions. I had a deep growing belief that there had to be more to life than percentages, a prognosis, and some pessimistic doctors waiting for me to get sick again. My refusal to settle started small. I spoke up, I advocated for myself, and I remembered Nicole. And one step at a time, I rebuilt. Not just my mobility, but my sense of possibility, ultimately leading me to an entirely new mindset and a new outlook on life. 6 months after receiving my first prosthetic and learning how to walk, I moved to Montana to attend Montana State University. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna trip on my stuff here. It's okay, if I do, you can laugh. This was my fresh start. I had no idea what kind of transformation this would spark. The first piece of magic was when my friend told me about Eagle Mount, which is a nonprofit here in the Valley that provides recreational opportunities for people with disabilities. They had an adaptive ski program. At this point, I hadn't skied in years. It'd been well before my first surgery, and I had no idea if I could anymore. But I signed up, and something magical happened. I felt the wind in my face, the mountain underneath me, my body moving with power and control. I wasn't just skiing again, I was free again. That one lesson turned into a season, and that season turned into 5 years of coaching, teaching kids and adults with disabilities how to ski, to snowboard, to fly down the mountain with confidence and joy. And it didn't just reconnect me to sport. It introduced me to something even more powerful: community. Eagle Mount has over 400 volunteers and 200 participants each season. I saw firsthand what happens when people show up for each other, not out of obligation, but out of genuine care. I saw how kindness scales. Simple acts like holding a sit ski, cheering on a first-time skier, bribing kids with a high five, can ripple outward and create real momentum for healing. I saw again and again what I had lived. When people move, they heal. And that healing multiplies when we move together. And that became my mission. While I was working at Eagle Mount, I was also a business student at MSU. Through an entrepreneurship class, and by chance, I was introduced to a startup called Trialware. I remember when Liz Johnson, the founder, came into the room and presented her mission. She was creating a safety wearable device that alerted primary care providers of clinical trial safety information for pediatric clinical trial participants. Now that's a lot of words, but it's something that hit home. I had experienced this exact issue. I had to advocate for myself to avoid medical mistakes. I experienced doctors using jargon I didn't understand and decisions being made around me instead of with me. This product was going to make communication faster, clearer, and safer for patients and families, something that I would have really had loved to have when I was going through treatment. For the first time, my story didn't feel like a liability. It felt like a superpower. I wasn't a patient anymore. I was a contributor, a builder, and a strategist. I worked with a team of students, creating logos, working on branding, and pre-marketing plans. I joined incubators and accelerators, getting exposed to other companies, and the process of creating a startup. I met other students with dreams and aspirations of changing entire fields, and my perspective of what was possible as a student completely shifted. That internship planted a seed. What else could I help build? Back on the mountain, while I was skiing on a pretty janky setup. I was using hard foam to pack out my ski boot. And this was industry standard people, a Paralympic skier told me to do this. It would break down and fly out mid-run, oftentimes leaving my friends chasing behind me saying, "Hey, I have a piece of your leg." This wasn't just my problem. Other amputees were using duct tape, wood blocks, whatever they could find. We were doing extreme sports with medieval tools, and it was all homemade because there was no other options available to us. So, a friend and I decided to make something that was a little bit more durable right here in Montana. We used the MSU Makerspace to 3D print a custom insert for my ski boot. It worked remarkably well. It eliminated the wiggle in my boot, and I went from cautiously skiing groomers to dropping in from the bridge at Bridger Bowl. There was a little more than just the cover that went into the confidence for that. But yeah, by my 4th season, I noticed such a drastic change in my ski ability from something that my friend and I created in an afternoon. And that felt really empowering. Other amputees at Eagle Mount started to ask me, "Where did you get this? Where can I get one? I would buy this." And that's all I needed to hear. There was our next startup. So Bridger Bionics was born to build affordable, high-performance prosthetic modifications for action sports, because gear should not be the barrier to living life fully. Most insurance companies will only cover one prosthetic leg, and that one prosthetic leg is supposed to get an amputee through all of their activities that they do. We've worked with athletes, with engineers, and prosthetists to co-create everything we make. We listen, we test, we iterate, and we make sure the people using our products are a part of designing them. Because when you build with the community, you build better. And maybe when you are the community, you build best. I had the privilege of competing in the MSU 100K venture competition in 2024 with my business partner, Kelvin. We placed second, providing funds to grow Bridger Bionics. We bought our first 3D printer, we worked on dialing the shin cover design and photogrammetry, and we built a foot for mountain biking and skiing. I'm currently working with a team of students to create some testing mechanisms for safety, and have been building relationships with the MSU Kinesiology Lab and Prosthetic Lab on campus. I had the joy of being a part of some novel research this past season, comparing the mechanics of my real leg, my meat leg I call it, to my prosthetic leg. Seeing where the system is working well and where it isn't, and where we can make improvements. I learned so much by working with students and cannot wait to see what we accomplish next year. I have found that the community has rallied behind this mission to create greater access and inclusion in outdoor spaces. And I've been overwhelmed by the support I have received making this a reality. Shortly after launching Bridger Bionics, I got a call from my old trialwear boss, the one that I had worked for in undergrad. She said, "We need someone who can connect with patients and bring their voice into the room. Will you come back?" I did not hesitate. I ran. I now serve as the engagement lead, helping clinical trial teams see patients not just as data points, but as people with lives, values, fears, and hopes. I learned that compassion is not a soft skill. It's a core strategy. Our team is led by a remarkable female founder, Liz Johnson, and is primarily women. People have taught me that empathy does not weaken innovation, but it fuels it. In the interviews with patients and families that I've had, I've witnessed echoes of my own story. The confusion, the trauma, and the sense of being invisible in a system that was not designed for them in mind. Many cannot get through their interviews without crying. They are not just recounting facts, they are grieving the care that they wished they'd received. Their pain and stories are blueprints for change. Empathy allows us to hear those stories not as outliers, but as data with heartbeats. I work to ensure that the system is more human, more responsive, and more just, because I know what it feels like when it isn't. Next month, I'm going to be traveling to Boston to meet with our partners at MIT and connect with patients and families at Boston Children's Hospital, which is one of the leading centers for pediatric cancer care in the nation. I'm excited to learn, to listen, and to ensure that patient-centric design is at the core of everything we do. I want to zoom out, because this is not just my story. It's about what's possible when access is prioritized, when inclusion isn't optional, and when disability is no longer seen as a deficit, but as a perspective. We are not here to be inspirational. We're here to be included. 1 in 4 adults in the US has a disability. That's not a niche. That's a quarter of the population. And yet, our systems from healthcare to transportation to product design continue to overlook, exclude, and underestimate people with disabilities. Access isn't a nice to have. It's a human right. Inclusion isn't expensive. Exclusion is. Because here's the thing. When you make things accessible from the start, everyone benefits. Just look at curb cuts, designed for wheelchair users, but also benefit parents with strollers and the elderly. Captions, originally for hard of hearing and deaf community, now used in noisy gyms and quiet office spaces, or voice to text. First developed for people with mobility considerations, now powering virtual assistants and hands-free texting. They all started as accessibility tools, but became everyday norms. People who live outside of the so-called mainstream aren't experiencing a lesser version of life. They're just navigating a system that was never built for their reality. And in doing so, they often reveal what's overlooked, fragile, or inefficient for everyone. This clarifies and amplifies. If we let them, these perspectives can be a powerful catalyst for improving life for everyone. Embracing being a part of the disability community has been one of the greatest gifts of my life. I have flown airplanes, I've gone on whitewater rafting trips, and most recently, I received my avalanche certificate for the adaptive community with the Beartooth Powder Guides in Cook City. It was an incredible experience. For a long time, I was in denial of my disability. I had internalized society's limiting beliefs about what disability meant. Looking back, I wish that I could tell my 11-year-old self that being different was not something to hide or to overcome, that it would become one of my greatest assets. Everything started to shift when I met people who challenged this previous belief. People who are not interested in being inspirational. They were way too busy living, parenting, running businesses, skiing double blacks, changing policy, running marathons. Actually, the world record holder for consecutive marathons run is a below-the-knee amputee. Pretty cool. And designing better futures for everyone. They showed me what true adaptability looks like, the kind that entrepreneurs and innovators dream of. The people who I've met from this community have taught me to live with deeper joy, fuller presence, and radical self-acceptance. They gave me back a sense of belonging and a purpose that I did not know I was missing. The connection has made life more richer than I could have imagined. So, what is next? This fall, I will be attempting to climb a 19,000-foot volcano in Ecuador, Cotopaxi, with the Range of Motion project, also known as ROMP. I have zero mountaineering experience, so I'm excited to train and to grow and to learn this summer. I have a ton of support. Their mission is to ensure high-quality prosthetic care for underserved people, improving mobility and independence for those in need. Every dollar we raise will go directly toward providing prosthetic care for people in Ecuador and Guatemala. It is estimated that about 90% of people in need of mobility assistant devices do not have access, and ROMP is working to change that. I'm excited to climb and to fundraise alongside other amputees, demonstrating what is possible when we have access to appropriate equipment and technology. Every step I take towards that summit is going to be a reminder. I'm still here, I'm still moving, and I'm still building. Aside from that, I'm continuing to work on trialware and Bridger Bionics. The lessons I've learned did not quite cost me an arm and a leg. Just a leg. Let's hope I keep the arms. What you've been through, especially the challenges that you have faced, might just be the reason you are the perfect person to solve a problem that others overlooked. Not despite your story, but because of it. If you think your story disqualifies you from building something great, I'm here to tell you that is not the case. It's not about if your past is shiny and polished. It's about your willingness to move through life with courage and curiosity. Because success does not come from control. It comes from our response. There's no perfect time to start. Start before you're ready. You may never feel ready, and you can figure it out as you go. I'm still figuring it out all of the time. And I did not build any of this alone. It was talked about earlier that community and networking and connection is so important, and it's so true. A friend told me about Eagle Mount, a professor connected me with trialware, and my business partner designed the first prototype for Bridger Bionics after we discussed my leg over a game of pickleball, and we did it in an afternoon. My life experiences have shown me that empathy and compassion are strategic tools that can lead to the best solutions. So, we do not need perfect founders, we need honest ones. We need more entrepreneurs willing to say, this didn't exist, so I built it. And the thing is, there's a lot of those in Montana. My story has a lot of Montana in it. And while I do love swing dancing, there's not a cowboy hat in sight in my story. The state is so much bigger than that now. As you spend more time here at the Investing in Montana Summit, keep in mind just how amazing these people are and the attitude is. We're scrappy, we work hard, we stay optimistic, and setbacks are a source of inspiration, not dejection. So, thank you so much for being here, for allowing me to share my story with you. Storytelling is a spark, and my hope is to keep spreading light. So I'd love to turn it over to you if I've shared anything that sparked a question, a thought, or even a story of your own. I would love to hear it. Thank you, Bozeman. Wow, thank you. Sounds good.
Are there any questions for Brianna? Hold on.
No, great. I hope you'll do a lot more of that. I do have a question. I was an angel investor in a prosthetic company. Oh, it wasn't a prosthetic company. It was a really great brace company that mimicked the gait of a horse to help stroke victims.
Wow.
But the ultimate downside was that every piece had to be custom fitted. So how do you make money doing that?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So we are using parametric design currently, and we're able to get measurements from our amputees through pictures, and then we just plug in our numbers. I'm not the engineer. And then we're able to get a measurement to print, a custom fit each time with very little effort from device to device for our covers.
Okay.
Yeah. And the feet that we're creating will just be generic.
Okay. Okay, so you're not custom building for every individual?
We are currently, as we're working out
Okay.
the bugs, and a lot of folks have specific requests with the sports that they're competing in. So we're dialing in what are the main needs that our demographic has, and we'll create around that.
Okay, because if you can't scale it, it's hard to sustain it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so-
Yeah. We're working with a lot of students right now, which is great. My
Great job.
favorite four-letter word is free, so.
Other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Hold on. Thanks very much. Okay. I know the ecosystem well. I know pretty much everyone in the pictures that you put up there. And you're obviously an impressive founder, and I think you have a room full of people who wants to help. Like, I'm just curious, where are you stuck as a founder? Like, where are you guys limited on your trajectory to entering the market right now? Is it a knowledge gap? Is it capital? Is it access to low volume manufacturing, prototyping?
I think it's a knowledge gap and an understanding of how these prosthetics are working in the real world beyond just the 5 testers that we have. And I believe mainly design engineer.
Okay, great.
My co-founder unfortunately decided to go to college in the UK, so.
Any other questions for our amazing speaker in the back?
Hi, great story, and I've got kind of the mirror image story. About 2 years ago, my wife had this thing sticking out of her neck, looked like she swallowed a stove bolt and was trying to get out. It took the current, or where we were living, 2 months to figure out it was cancer, and by then it had attached itself to the jugular vein. I called a good friend of mine who is a retired physician named Dr. Marianne Hugo. We served in Vietnam 50 years ago. And she said, wait right there, you're going to get a phone call. We did. And it was her roommate in college, Dr. Janet Grandis is her name. Anyhow, Dr. Grandis was the sitting chair of throat and neck cancer for the American Cancer Society. She said, here's a phone number, call Antonio Jimeno, who started the throat and neck practice down in Anschutz Cancer in Aurora, California. It was just the opposite. Jimeno was just a ball of energy. He said, I work for you. And in his interviews, he would sit down on a little panel and look up. And the whole place had his gestalt. They even had a place for us to live, brought meals every night, and your story really hit me. I said, if you'd had a Jimeno, you wouldn't have that other foot. Because it was eminently curable, but it needed very advanced radiation. Like radiation caused your cancer. What they were proposing for the locals was, you're going to lose your hair, all this bad stuff. And we got down there, and the radiation oncologist, who was a California surfer boy with MIT PhDs in engineering and Sloan Kettering residency. And my wife kept going on and on about the feeding tube. And he got right in her face and said, sweetheart, let me put it to you this way. There ain't no F fill in the blank feeding tube. And they shot 62 protons. That's the center of an atom.
Very direct, very
Nailed the whole thing.
It's incredible.
And what I would like to do is, with your permission, talk to you a little bit. I'd like for you to call Dr. Jimeno, because the whole patient-centric treating thing that they have is amazing. And he's a real curious guy. I know he'd love to hear about your work.
That's awesome. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, I'll get your info.
All right.
Amazing.
Well, can we get another hand